It's June 24th, 2026, and you're listening to the How You Doin' Bobcast Show. I'm your host, Bob Cook. Welcome. This is Season 1, Episode 15. Today we're going to review and reflect upon Pastor Chris Peddie's previous Sunday morning message he gave on Father's Day, June 21st, 2026, at Lakeside Family Church in beautiful Stevensville, Michigan. You can always watch Pastor Chris's full message on YouTube by looking up Lakeside Family Church. There are several churches of that same name, so add Stevensville, Michigan, or Peddie, P-E-D-D-I-E, to help you locate it. Also, you can find the link on the church Facebook page as well. This week was Pastor Chris's fourth message in a new series entitled People Jesus Couldn't Reach. And he spoke about Pilate. Today we're going to be talking about Pilate, the man who had the power to save or condemn Jesus to his death, or so he thought. Well, happy belated Father's Day, because although I'm doing this covering the message from Father's Day, I'm doing it on the 24th. But I do want to say, if you're a dad, happy Father's Day, belated Father's Day, what have you. It's a Father's Day tradition at Lakeside for Pastor to share some dad jokes. So Pastor Chris nailed some very good ones and painful ones, might I add. But here are a couple of my favorites, and I hope you like them as well. How do you get out of the inside of an elephant? Okay, I'm letting you think about this. You run around until you're pooped out. Okay, and how about this one? How do you get down from an elephant? You don't. You get down from a duck. So if you need to think about those a little bit, think about them. But if I need to explain them, well, then just contact me and I will. But I think my dad actually, at least one of those was from my dad. Anyway, I like those. So people Jesus could not save or could not reach. Last week, Pastor Chris spoke of Judas and how he stayed close to Jesus but never gave Jesus his heart. And if you recall, I was visiting Elevation Church in Charlotte, North Carolina, and did a review and a reflection on the message I heard when I was down there. So if you didn't catch Pastor Chris's message on Judas, please check it out on YouTube, because I will not be covering that one. I need to actually listen to that one sometime myself. But today we're talking about Pilate. So Pastor mentioned that Pilate knew the truth. He's a complicated figure. And he tried to get Jesus off the hook. You kind of feel like he's on our side, sort of, And I'm going to be reviewing Pastor Chris's message, so I'll be obviously repeating or sharing some of what he shared. But I'm also going to be giving and sharing my thoughts that kind of impacted me, or how Pastor Chris's message impacted me, and things that came to my mind as well. So Pilate knew the right thing to do, but doing the right thing is tough, right? But Pilate was a coward. So knowing the right thing and doing the right thing, two different things there. And if I'm honest, and I ask, do I ever know the right thing, but I'm too afraid to do it? That can be a painful question. How about you? As far as this earthly kingdom, Pilate had the final say. Knowing of Jesus is not the same as following Jesus. Jesus is a free gift, but there is a cost, in that you must follow him, and you will have a new life. Your life will take on more meaning, which is great, and a new trajectory, and that may be a bit scary. And in fact, I wouldn't want it any other way. I mean, it's actually an awesome thing, but it's scary when you may be sitting on the edge of the cliff thinking, okay, what is this all about? In John 18:36, Jesus said, "My kingdom is not of this world. If it were, my servants would fight to prevent my arrest by the Jewish leaders. But now my kingdom is from another place." John 18:37 continues, "You are a king then," said Pilate. Jesus answered, "You say that I am a king." So he is more or less admitting that he's a king. He has a kingdom. It may not be of this world, but he's admitting he's a king to Pilate, the man that in this earthly realm has the ability to either save or condemn him to death. Now, in fact, Jesus continues in John 18:37 saying, "In fact, the reason I was born and came into the world is to testify to the truth. Everyone on the side of truth listens to me." Wow, that's powerful, right? He's saying that to the most powerful man that he is in that region right now. In verse 38, Pilate says, "What is truth?" retorted Pilate. With this, he went out again to the Jews gathered there and said, "I find no basis for a charge against him." In John 18:39 and 40, Pilate continues, "But it is your custom for me to release to you one prisoner at the time of Passover," because Passover was approaching. I think maybe the next day. "But do you want me to release the King of the Jews?" And they shouted back, "No, not him. Give us Barabbas." Now, Barabbas had taken part in an uprising. And my editorial comment, he was a bad dude. Maybe even a murderer. It's not real clear, but he was a bad dude. The Jewish leaders wanted the charge to stick against Jesus, so they positioned Jesus as a rebel against Rome. Now, Pilate doesn't want anything to do with this. It's obvious. Pilate knew the Jewish leaders were envious. He knew this was all a setup. And he tries to find a way out. Ironically, Pilate asks, "What is the truth?" Remember that? But he's looking him in the eyes. He's looking the truth in the eyes because Jesus is truth. I mean, Pilate gets it from a standpoint that he knows what's going on, but what is he going to do, right? That's the question. He knows it's all a farce, the Jewish leaders coming after Jesus. My gut is that he knows there's something to this Jesus. What is he going to do about it? Pastor Chris said many people don't reject Jesus due to the lack of information. They have the information, but due to the fear of where obedience will lead. Will I be ridiculed? Will I be made fun of? Will I be cut off from certain peer groups? Will I not be able to do some of the things that I've enjoyed doing in my life? Pilate tried to set Jesus free, but the Jewish leaders would have no part of it. At that time, Rome controlled Jerusalem. And the Jewish leaders were no fans of Rome. They did not like Rome being over them. But now they do a 360-degree turn, or maybe it's really a 180-degree turn. Anyway, they turn away from not liking Rome and to Rome when it fits their purpose. They hate Jesus that much that they are now pro-Rome. They set up Jesus as one who claims to be a king and is against Rome. They are basically threatening Pilate. It's a bizarre situation. Pilate sees it's a joke, but he's afraid. He's afraid of the people in the crowd. The Jewish leaders in the crowd yell, "If you let him go, you are no friend of Caesar." Right? So they're basically calling Pilate out on the carpet. He knows what is right, but his integrity is weak. He was afraid and did not do the right thing. He wants the Jews and the crowd to change their mind so he doesn't have to take responsibility. And Pastor Chris reminds us of times in our lives where we may have faced peer pressure, whether we were young on the playground or as teenagers in friend groups and peer groups. And sometimes following Christ does come with a price or a cost, right? It may mean a relationship goes away. It may mean tension. It may mean career opportunities go away, right? I mean, that happens. It may mean maybe you lose your popularity or you lose your comfort. And in some countries, in parts of the world, death is still on the table. It happens. It still happens. Christians are persecuted to death. But Pastor reminded us the cost of rejecting Jesus is so much greater. It has an eternal consequence, not just a temporary, not just a blip on the radar of eternity that we're living in right now, right? It has an eternal consequence when we reject him. In John 19:4-5, once more Pilate came out and said to the Jews gathered there, "Look, I'm bringing him out to you to let you know that I find no basis for a charge against him." When Jesus came out wearing the crown of thorns and the purple robe, Pilate said to them, "Here is the man." And right away, my mind just goes to the movie The Passion, that Mel Gibson directed, and Jim Caviezel played Jesus. The scene was so well done, and it was painful and heartbreaking to watch. The Jews now turn back to their laws and say, "He claims to be the Son of God, which deserves death." Now, Pilate spoke to Jesus. "Where do you come from?" There was no answer. Pastor mentioned his thoughts were maybe if Jesus says too much, he could be freed. But he must be crucified, right? He must be the sacrificed lamb and do the will of the Father. Remember the Garden of Gethsemane? Jesus says, "Father, if you are willing, take this cup from me. But not my will, yours be done." So while Jesus was deeply pained, remember to the point where he was sweating drops of blood, he still remains obedient and says, "Not my will, your will be done." Pilate reminds Jesus, "I have the ability to condemn you and crucify you or to free you." And I think Pilate, Pastor Chris mentioned this, I think Pilate, when he had him flogged and beat to inches of death, and then they mocked him by spitting on him, putting this crown of thorns on his head, which made his head bleed, and just throwing this purple robe on him, I think Pilate may have thought, okay, maybe the crowd would have pity on him and let him go and realize, wow, he's really, gotten some severe punishment. But you know what? The crowd yells, "Crucify him." The leaders in the crowd, have got the crowd all riled up. And then they say, "We have no king but Caesar." Oh, there they are. On Rome's side again all of a sudden. The people want Jesus crucified. Pilate keeps searching for a way out. People, me, perhaps you, we can put off decisions in that same way, can't we? And the thing we've got to realize is not deciding is still a decision. I mean, not every decision needs to be made right away. And, Pastor clarified that. But stalling because you don't want to make a decision and you're afraid is still a decision. It's kind of a decision by default, right? How about to follow Jesus? Don't wait. Don't put it off. It's still a decision. If you put it off, you're making a decision. In Matthew 12:39, Jesus says, "Whoever is not with me is against me, and whoever does not gather with me scatters." Matthew 27:24 says, "When Pilate saw that he was getting nowhere, but that instead an uproar was starting, he took water and washed his hands in front of the crowd. 'I am innocent of this man's blood,' he said. 'It is your responsibility.'" Now, Pilate washed his hands to show symbolically he is innocent of Jesus' blood. But in reality, it still doesn't remove his guilt or the consequences. That brings me, this is just a childhood memory. I can remember attending Woodland Shores Baptist Church. It was kind of a starter sister church from Napier Parkview Baptist in Benton Harbor. And we were meeting at the high school, Bridgman High School, at the time, because we had no building. We were startup church. And we had in the library, that's where we had children's church. And I can remember dear lady Frida Atkinson was my Sunday school teacher. And I think she encouraged us to memorize verses and so forth. And I think I might have gotten a puzzle as an award or something like that. And I can remember it was a puzzle. It was a small, maybe 8.5 by 11, size of a piece of paper. And I remember putting that puzzle together and decoupaging it. Back in the 70s, that was something you did with puzzles. You made puzzles and then you decoupaged them. I did one with the MASH too, the MASH cast. I wonder where that is now. I wish I knew. But I did one, and it was the scene of Pilate on the steps with Jesus there. And I don't know whatever happened to that. Maybe one of my sisters has it, or my brother. I don't know. Maybe it was sold at a garage sale. Sorry for the digression. But Pastor used an example of a referee who sees a foul, maybe a flagrant foul, but refuses to acknowledge it. Maybe the game is on the line and it's almost over, and it seems like we've all seen that, right? We always think it's against that it's working against our side, right? Against our team. But no decision or ignoring that foul is still a decision, right? If you're not for one team, you're for the other. Pastor commented that some say Pilate may be one of the most tragic characters in the Bible. We'd have to think about that. I mean, he saw the innocence of Jesus. He saw the jealousy of the Jewish leaders, but he was afraid to act and do the right thing. Another example Pastor used, and I think it was a good one, was a manager who sees a top employee, maybe a top salesman, falsifying reports, for which he may have gotten rewards for, or maybe that manager even got rewarded for it. But the manager may find it out, but he delays his condemnation due to the ramifications. But his decision was made, right? He ignored it. So he still made a decision. Courage, and this is a quote from Pastor Chris Peddie. He said this, and I wrote it down. Courage must accompany our conviction. I really like that. Courage must accompany our conviction. Am I willing to follow Jesus? I like this example as I used to be a lifeguard years ago on Lake Michigan. And so he used this following example. I used to lifeguard on Lake Michigan, at Waco Beach. That's the city park in Bridgman, Michigan, southwest Michigan. as well as the high school pool, the Bridgman High School pool, and the YMCA on Hollywood. And I also lifeguarded at the Benton Harbor High School pool, which was being administered by the YMCA at that time. But Pastor sets the scene. Imagine you are caught in a rip current, right? Far from shore. So rip current is a current that develops that just goes straight out away from shore, goes out away from shore. And there are techniques for you to be able to get out of rip currents, right? But and I've heard of true life stories. I had one where a sales representative that I used to know worked for a company, I think either that I worked for or in the industry anyway. And one of the surgeons, a friend of mine, saw that he was in trouble. I think this was, down in the Caribbean or something, probably during a meeting. And he actually went out and pulled him back in. So he was the lifeguard in this case. So you're caught in a rip current and you're getting sucked out. And a lot of people will panic and they just start as hard as they can swimming in, but you can't fight against the current. And this lifeguard comes out, calms you down, and saves you and brings you back. And, you were not saved by your own work. In this circumstance, it didn't matter how much you were willing to be back on the beach and how hard you might be swimming against that current. You did not save yourself, right? The lifeguard saved you. You just had to stop fighting and trust the lifeguard. Well, back on shore, you may tell others about it. You may acknowledge, how this lifeguard came out and got you. And you might even become a lifeguard yourself, right? Because you're so thankful and you admire him. But it doesn't change the fact that you could not save yourself in that particular circumstance. Faith in Jesus is like trusting the lifeguard. Stop fighting. Trust the lifeguards. Your efforts will not save you. Trust in Jesus. Now, I know some of you will say, well, here's how you get out of a rip current, and there are ways. But let's just say, there are circumstances people get in, and they just cannot save themselves, especially in the water. And as a lifeguard and even a WSI water safety instructor, I was trained to train others to be lifeguards. People panic, and you are taught on ways to calm them down and try to get them to trust you. Otherwise, if you just go up to them, they may just jump on you and take you down with them. So you got to be really careful. After the story, Pastor made a call of invitation. Now, if you're a Christian, you may be very familiar with this. If you're new to Christianity, or it may be something that's new to you as well. It's basically a way to walk you through accepting Jesus as your Lord and Savior. So Pastor Chris talked about that. Acknowledging you are a sinner and in need of a Savior. A verse in Romans says, "For all have sinned and fall short of the glory of God." There's not one that can be righteous on his own. So you just have to acknowledge that. I need a Savior, and I want Jesus to save me because he's the only one that can. Not anyone else. No one else can save you. And we could talk about ways that people try to save themselves, but that's a podcast for another day. You will always fall short. And if you rely on something or someone else, you will fall short. Because you cannot save yourself no matter how hard you try. Now, I just kind of roughly explained this, and the great thing is you can accept him right now in your heart, and you can follow him. It's that simple. Either you've never done it before and you just say, "Dear Lord, I know I'm a sinner. I've been working hard myself. I know I need a Savior. I want you to save me. I want to follow you and help me do that. Help me do that. And, perhaps you believe you did that years ago and you're just not walking with him and you haven't walked with him. Well, and there's circumstances in your life where you've drifted away. Well, then it's an opportunity to rededicate yourself. Just say, Lord, I know I've done this. I believe I've done it. And if I haven't, I want to do it and do it now. And I want to recommit myself to you. During my, I think it was maybe my second Bobcast show. It was in the Bobcast show, LFC, Living for Christ, A Walk to Eternity. I gave my testimonial. And that's just basically saying, telling the story of your life, kind of the ups and the downs, and how you came to trust Jesus as your Savior. So feel free to go back and catch that episode in wherever you're listening. That should be archived for you to catch as well. So if you did take that step today and you want to share it with someone, it's good to share it with someone. Feel free to comment to this podcast show. You should be able to comment, leave comments, or share it with a good friend that's a believer, or with a Bible-believing church like Lakeside Family Church, or like many other great churches that are out in our community and across the country that are Bible-believing churches. Well, thank you for joining me. I really appreciate checking in and seeing how you doing this week. And it was midweek. It's Wednesday. And last Sunday, as I said earlier, was Father's Day, and Brother Jim Whitehead from Lakeside Family Church helped us celebrate by doing a little drawing and trivia for the dads. I didn't win. There must be something wrong with that, but oh well, it was a lot of fun, so I appreciate him doing that. And if you're a father, a very happy belated Father's Day to you. I hope you're having a blessed week. And towards the end here, I just want to give a shout out to my dad, Ron Cook, who went to be with the Lord back in 2004. Wow, that seems so long ago. It seems unreal. I love you, Dad, and thank you for everything. You're the greatest. And today, believe it or not, June 24th, happens to be both my mom, Majel Cook, M-A-J-E-L, Majel Cook, and my dad's birthday. Yes, they shared the same birthday, although there's a 1 year difference. My mom was actually 1 year older than my dad. That's pretty cool, huh? Well, my mom went to be with the Lord in 2017, so they're both in heaven. So happy birthday, Mom and Dad. You are loved by me and many, many others. Tell someone you love them today, perhaps your father or someone who had been like a father to you. But regardless, tell someone you love them today. Life is short, right? Have a great rest of your week. God bless.